This is Tom Duty, middle-aged American living in New Jersey near the Lincoln Tunnel. If you were to visit my website, you would type Howdy Doody into Google. You'll find the correct spelling of the famous puppet. You then combine Tom Duty in a Google search from my site. A couple of comments on Roy Moore. I watched the interview on the Today program. The woman who was 14 when she was taken to Roy Moore's home on two different occasions. Went willingly, took his phone call. Again, this is people, the professionals usually remind their audience that this is before the age of cell phones. So these calls that Roy Moore made to girls, both in high school and at their homes, was to the family home, to the school main number. So the girl takes Roy Moore's phone call and agrees to meet him, and tells her story on Today. The questions of the media pro were gentle, as is expected from the Today program. This is not Rachel Maddow. This is not Tucker Carlson. This is not David Letterman out of retirement. This is gentle Today show. However, they did say, people are suspicious of the timing. Why now? It is my opinion that the answer is obvious. The people who can't get with the idea that victims don't immediately claim they're victims, it's precedented over and over again, and it's understandable. People don't become a victim of a sexual crime and immediately scream, "I'm a victim." For whatever reason, it's common, and so the story is held. So why held so long? And if it's held so long, why not held in perpetuity? Why now? And that question was asked. It was the only pointed question of the whole interview, and it is at the basis of some of the haters of the liberal media that has attacked Roy Moore, their great candidate. I'm saying that insincerely. So Ann Coulter is one that says, you have to be suspicious of the timing. And other people of status, Republicans defending Moore, are saying that the women, they're not doubting the women, but they should face consequences for waiting so long. So these are, what I'm trying to do is mention it's the same theme. Why now? Why such a long delay? The Today show asked the question that was on the minds, what they believed was on the minds of people. Ann Coulter is one that said the timing is so suspicious, and many people of status defending Roy Moore are trying to say they're not doubting the women, though they are saying why now. So if you look at these stories, I think the answer is obvious. Why now? And specifically the Today Show interview with the woman who was 14 when she met Roy Moore on two occasions at his apartment, at his home. So there's a girl, now a woman, who claims Roy Moore called her at school. So she was in trig class, again, pre-cell phone, called to the principal's office, and Roy Moore said, "Hi, it's Roy Moore. What are you doing?" She said, "I'm in trig class." So if you play that out, accept that it's true, most people believe the accounts of these women. Anyone who believes 100% of their accounts has forgotten how much time has passed. The memories instantly, and certainly the memories after so many years, have changed. So they can't be 100% truthful, but this trigonometry class thing was certainly memorable and probably told very close to the factual details. So at a minimum, there's someone that answered the phone. Then there's people standing around the girl who took the phone call. This is weird. Who was it? There's people talking in the office. In addition to that, there's the girlfriends and the friends, boyfriends of the girl who returns to trig class and explains who was on the phone. These people have an anecdotal story from the girl who took the phone call, and also evidence to see that she was called back from class. There is a possibility that this girl was lying. It wasn't Roy Moore, and he said it was Roy Moore. But they know that this event happened. The girl was called out of class. The people standing around her in the office when she took the phone call, there are people that know and have anecdotal evidence firsthand that these things happen. And then you take the fact that he was prohibited from returning to a shopping mall because he was being such a nuisance to the girls. My point is this: if people trust their own firsthand evidence, even though it's not direct evidence, they weren't there to witness Roy Moore take this girl's clothes off in his countryside apartment. Instead, they witnessed something that needed an explanation, and the explanation was Roy Moore, whether it's the shopping mall or the principal's office where the girl took the phone call, or back in the classroom trigonometry where the girl explains why she stepped out and who had been on the phone, who called her out of class. These are people that know from their own experience that there is something to support these claims. Now, if the man, Roy Moore, had done these things and then vanished, either died or left the state and became politically irrelevant, then the amount of people talking about such matters would be a fixed number, which would eventually, after this many years, die off. But the opposite is true. Roy Moore climbed in status and in voice. He is a loudmouth. He is a blowhard. He not only achieved levels of political influence and legal influence and a judgeship, but he also took on very controversial issues and took very stupid sides of these issues, making him very attractive to attention, all attention, both good and bad. He seems to thrive in it, almost as if he likes what's happening to him now. So if you imagine a man whose career is like that, in contrast to the man who might have vanished after doing these things, making a nuisance of himself at the shopping mall, calling girls out of trig class, taking a 14-year-old to his apartment in the countryside on 2 different occasions, this man, Roy Moore, takes a number of people that know about this and explodes that number over the course of decades to certainly thousands, and I'm going to claim it's probably tens of thousands of people that heard first or second hand that this is real, that Roy Moore is a problem. So accepting that to be true, tens of thousands, listeners, please, you have to do your own math. You get over 1,000 without even an effort. I'm claiming it's more than tens of thousands. And now you take all these people that know about it, and then you take competent investigative reporters from the Washington Post. They start asking some questions, looking for dirt on Roy Moore, which is a common practice of political climate today. And people start talking, and they say, well, who might know more about this? And all of a sudden, the flow of hearsay that passed gossip around the state for decades is now sending the reporters back to the source. And eventually they end up on the phone with girls who are now women who have the possibility of accusing public to the Washington Post what has happened. So the woman who was 14, who was interviewed on Today, said to the Washington Post, if you find more women willing to tell their story, I will also. She didn't want to be alone if she had the possibility of having company in that report. So the Washington Post managed to get the accusers up to 5, which I think was the original accusers of Roy Moore. And that got the story of the 14-year-old, which was, of course, the most significant because of her age. And then you lay this out and listen to the people that are criticizing the timing. The timing is natural in the sense that this guy's now going to Washington, potentially going to Washington. He will, is my prediction. So he's going to Washington, and Washington paper gets involved. Washington Post was not involved in Alabama matters. Washington Post was involved in Alabama matters that were about to become national matters. And they just started asking questions. And those questions led them to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 accusers. And all those women went public, I think all in name, and told their stories. And now what's happened has happened. So to the Ann Coulters, the other men of status who have claimed that this timing is suspicious, that the women should not have waited so long, all you have to do is think for a minute, wait a minute, why did this happen? Well, it's understandable, predictable that victims don't scream victim all the time promptly. So there's a natural delay. Well, how long is that delay going to be? Well, people are like the woman on Today described that very naturally, very believable. It's just, why not later? Why not 5 years later? Why not 10 years later? Because all the reasons that life gets people to procrastinate things. All of a sudden, you got some investigative reporters for the Washington Post poking around, and you have tens of thousands of people who could say, yeah, Roy Moore is this and Roy Moore is that. You know, it's all hearsay, but these are the things I'm hearing. Who might know more? Boom. Who might know more? You got 10, 20, 50 reporters of the Washington Post making those phone calls, asking those questions. It doesn't take long to start having phone calls with people who know more. So this whole story of Roy Moore, this guy should not be elected, though he will be, and he will go to Washington, and what happens to him is yet to be seen. It's a politically interesting story. But the bottom line is this: almost no one is disputing the girls' stories, the women who had these events with Roy Moore as a girl. Almost no one, if no one, is disputing their stories. The only thing that rests is why wait so long, and if you wait so long, why now? So why wait so long, and if you wait so long, why not wait in perpetuity? Take it to your grave. Why did you wait so long and then do it now? Well, you then match the answer, which is just logically flawless. Tens of thousands of people know the story's about to go from an Alabama story to a national story, to a Washington, D.C. story. You got an investigative reporting staff at the Washington Post. They start asking questions. You got tens of thousands of people that say there's something. Who might know more? Who might know more? Gosh, with a relatively small amount of work of a relatively 10, 20 size competent investigative reporter staff, now you're starting to talk to some people of significance. And then the story gets written. That part is so easy. And for Roy Moore and the others who are blaming the Washington Post, they want to blame someone because they just can't deal with the facts. But the Washington Post is certainly has been flawless on this story. This has been Tom Duty, middle-aged American living in New Jersey near the Lincoln Tunnel. If you were to visit my website, you would type Howdy Doody into Google. You'll find the correct spelling of the famous puppet. You then combine Tom Duty in a Google search from my site. Thank you for listening. Have a good day, good evening, or restful night's sleep. Ciao.